All right, shalom, shalom. Let's put on the screen share here. We'll be having a guest join us tonight. Just doing some sound checking. All right. So let's get right to it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna prove and there's been papers from 2022 and 2021 that aren't really touched on a lot, but they're very important for the understanding of our time. Because a lot of times when we base who are people and what are they, a lot of times people don't look at the fossils, and that's what we're going to do today. We're going to be looking at the fossils. So I'm gonna first start off like this, right? What's the classic story that you probably know, or what is told in schools? Here's what we know. They know about the Big Bang Theory and the ideas. So here's just like a classic idea of evolution and all those things, right? They talk about the Big Bang was the start of it all, right? They know that that's like the making of the matter and all those things and whatnot. And then they talk about the Milky Way, the Earth being made. Then you get to the time of the human ancestors and some early things and whatnot. And then you get to the time of basically some different types of humans and stuff. So right here, it's gonna be like culture development and things like that. But a little earlier, you can see right here, they talk about early human evolution. But I'm gonna show you stuff that is not usually talked about. So we're gonna talk about actual facts of scientific stuff. And first, let me show something. So long ago, they'll say about 100 million years ago, they say people didn't exist, but that's what you're going to see today. You can see some really interesting things that we know that the way that they time things, the way that they calculate the age of stuff, we know that a lot of it is exaggeration. But I just want to show you something. So I had talked about a lot of these things, a lot of different things, but I'm just going to show some conclusions. I'm going to jump down to basically we're going to work our way down. In fact, let me open up something because since it might be a little complex, we're going to make it where we have something for memory's sake. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a line. In fact, yeah, I'm going to draw a line. And we're going to start in an early time frame, right? We're going to start in an early time frame. So the earliest time from the earliest time frame to now, we're going to get some interesting information. So I'm just going to leave that there. So first, let's get a little understanding of what I had talked about before when I talked about the out of Africa idea and that we have humans outside of Africa before that. If you already seen, I already talked about the tiny humanoids that they found outside of Africa. But let's talk about that real fast. Let's start off with that. So it's a little information from academia. We had talked about it. They found a said 600 million year old tiny humanoid. So the tiny humanoid was said 600 million years old. That's what they say. They say it was about 600 million years old, right? There's a lot of places where they show it when they talk about it and everything. You can see right here, 600 million year old fossil of tiny humanoids found in Antarctica. And I was talking about also that long ago, the world was different. And that's what we're going to show too. We're going to also work our way to now and show also, right? We're going to also show how the whole world changed. Let me actually grab something from here, right here, right? We're going to show how it all changed by the time of Noah's flood. So we're going to note human migration. So very important stuff, very deep stuff to note. So long ago, starting off at the 6 million year old human fossil that was found long ago in Antarctica. That's something just very important to note that was something that was found in Antarctica. And they found basically some evidence of those humanoids. Now, let's keep on keeping on. So we already talked about that. So we're going to be working our way to now to the time that we're in. So very important stuff on that one. But now it also leads to, in fact, I wanted to open something here. It also leads to the point where there is a known asteroid that they say had, did some damage to the dinosaurs and stuff. Let me actually click that. But they also found something interesting there. So in this place called KT, here's a little understanding of it. I'll just open this. So KT, just to get a little understanding, it's a little layer that said 66 million years old. They know that it's a layer where they found basically the effects of asteroids. So you can see right here, the little trench. They know it's a crater here from a dent of an asteroid and everything. But they also found something really interesting there. They also found something really interesting in that layer. What they found was some writing, and what they found out that this was in South America, and in this area where they were digging, they found some writing. And what they found on that stone, they found some interesting writing written on it. So this was a stone that was dug in an area that was determined to be about 600 million years old. And deep down there, they found this stone that has some writing on it. So about 66 million years old. Just a little understanding of that. Now, like I said before, we don't believe the years on here, but this is just getting us a little understanding. So basically conclusion is that the thing that we just showed you was basically a stone that basically went down. They talk about how it basically impacted and killed a bunch of dinosaurs and whatnot. So they say it was a long time ago when this thing happened, and it killed a bunch of different species and stuff. So they say it was a long time ago when this had happened. I'm not going to get into this part, but let's keep on going because we want to work our way. I want to fly through some of these things so we can work our way to about the time of Neanderthals and modern humans and things like that. So you're probably already thinking, this is definitely one of those things where it seems like it might not be true, but I'm going to start showing you that scientists know this stuff is true. For example, here, a tiny skull fossil suggests basically primate brain areas evolved separately. So just showing you some things. This person got a little skull here. They say it's about 20 million years old. It says a fossil of a skull. They'll say it's like a extinct monkey. That's what they'll try to link it to. But if you look closer, they'll start linking it to basically connections with tiny humanoids and things like that. And we're going to talk about that. So it's going to let us know that this was found in New Mexico. A lot of these things are going to be found in what they call the New World. Right here, you see the New World monkey today, they'll say. But we're going to start linking it into what it is, to what's going on here. So it looks kind of strange to be a monkey. It looks very strange to be a monkey. But let's keep on going. Let's keep on digging in. Now, what they also found is that they found tiny humanoids in certain areas that had exist in a long time ago. So, for example, here, let me actually reopen this because I added something to it. I need to refresh it. All right, go down real fast. All right. All right, so just to show a little a sample of something, just to show what I'm showing is stuff that's real. Here's a little sample. Let me just show a little piece here. This is a tiny humanoid that was found. But let me show you that what I'm showing you here is very real.
Shock, I think, and the surprise was, and the absolute certainty that Dr. Lachman had was that this specimen was clearly not fetal. Right, even though the size of the specimen would suggest that it's fetal, but that by comparing the growth plates to known standards, this is clearly between 6 to 8 years old.
All right, now call me crazy, but I'm just a doctor. But I can tell you, I've taken care of a lot of children that are 6 and 8 year olds. I've never seen one 6 inches tall. This is 6 inches, 13 centimeters. What 6 to 8 year old can live to be only 6 inches tall? Number one. Number two, how did it live? It was found in the driest place on earth, the Atacama Desert in Chile, northern Chile. It is estimated to be in many decades and probably hundreds of years old. There was no neonatal intensive care unit in Chile at that time. There may not be now. And even at the best neonatal intensive care unit in the world today, you could not keep this person, for lack of a better word, alive. So the question becomes, what is it?
It's quite clear that this is a real sample. This is a real specimen. This is not something somebody glued together. Anybody who thinks that this is something that is glued together, I challenge them to do it, right? And I challenge them to be able to subject such a thing to an X-ray and or CRT image and then let that pass the world's expert in bone dysplasias. right? So that.
Okay, so a little bit of understanding. So basically, what I'm concluding is that early humans might have started actually really small. They actually might have started more smaller than what we are today. Is what I'm concluding here. For example, here's something from Natural Geographic. It's going to read you something that it talks about here. It's going to talk about a certain species, a certain human species. This is what it's called right here. I don't know how you fully say that. Homo flora. I'm not going to try to pronounce it. It says that along Homo sapiens, right? So as a longer Homo sapien, it says, this is what it says. The new species of humans, adult size was about, watch how big this human was about that of a 3-year-old modern human child. So if you have a 3-year-old, or if you've seen a 3-year-old, right, they're not that tall, right? A 3-year-old is very short, right? What I'm concluding is that those, instead of humans starting off as a bowl of soup or starting off as a fish evolving to a monkey to these things, they began as humans, as tiny humans, and they started to grow and grow and grow and increase to larger sizes. So this is something that you're seeing here, a hobbit-like human ancestor found in Asia, right? Scientists have found skeletons of human species that grew no larger than a 3-year-old modern child. So they're very, very tiny that were found. So a little understanding. I'm gonna go over here. So got a little information to show. So just to get a quick start is that we already talked about this, but I just want to verify to you that humans are outside of Africa, for example, millions of years old. For example, there's fossils in Crete, found 600 million years old. There's multiple different things. I could talk about some of the metal that they found that's older in different layers and stuff like that. But now let's go to something else. Let's talk about some of the things that go on with the Denisovans and Homo sapiens. We did meet other human species, specifically the Denisovans and Neanderthals, as they say, as we moved out into the world. So here's a little paper, and we're going to start getting into the understanding of what many people know is like Neanderthals and things like that. So bear with me as I go over this, because we're going to, with this, as you've seen with those older fossils, we have people already out, but I'm going to also prove it with the Denisovans and modern humans by looking at the connection of these things. So the Outer Africa idea, notice, is an idea that was made. In fact, the time that the Outer Africa concept came out was not by fossils. It was by the concept of eugenics. If you look up eugenics, it's a racist form of science that they had based upon skin color. They was basically determining if someone was darker skinned, they was less evolved than someone who was lighter skinned. We know that's not true today. We know that haplogroups can have different pigmentation. Pigmentation isn't a representation of peopling. So that's very important. But we can see here when it's talking about early humans and things like that. Remember we had talked about just on the other live when we was talking about people that started Africa, we had debunked the one of this one that basically was trying to say that it was a modern human, but we found out it was actually a Denisovan, or rather a Neanderthal, that this was actually a Neanderthal rather than a Homo sapien. That's very important to get a little understanding on some of these things. So let's go back over here. So Denisovans, Neanderthals, and us, you'll get a little understanding when we go through them. We're going to go through it. We're going to bring out some even Denisovan haplogroups and things like that. But let me read something that I screenshot here. So when did genetics actually come out? It came out in the 90s, actually in the 1900s, pretty much. But in the 1990s, by research on basically mitochondria, or basically mtDNA, female DNA, studies by Alan Wilson and such, which suggests that all humans ultimately descended from one female. So we know that this is a true thing, right? Adam and Eve story, right? They call her the basically mitochondria Eve, the mtDNA of Eve. Today, the vast majority of scholars have accepted that human beings evolved in Africa and migrated outwards. But we're going to look at that a little more closer, because we got 2001, 2002 information that's going to bring these things to a more lighter understanding. It's just going to talk about modern humans and things like that. We were just talking about some of the things on there, but let's keep on going. So continuing on. So most people already know about, the flood, but you got to know also there's pre-flood people. This thing, I don't know why that's off, but that's all right. We don't need that one. But some of the earliest finds of humans, the earliest find of humans that's found in fossils is one of the Eurasian fossils that's found in this cave. Also, I don't know why I didn't open up a map, because I think maps are important to understand where things are on maps. I'm going to just open this up and talk about what is here once this little map opens up. And once it opens up, then I'm going to put this on a map so we can get an understanding of what's going on there. I'm going to move this, right? Because if you know about the flood, you know the waters came up from underneath and everything. But let me move this over here so that we can get a little understanding on these things. All right, so a little cave that's found. I'm going to copy it just to show that location. So it's in Greece. So there was a cave here. The earliest finding of humans, when you say modern humans, is around this area. So around this area, but you're going to have some in different areas around these areas, just to get a little understanding. So let me read that little piece. Right, we got some other things we're going to talk about, but let me read this piece right here. Also, so the fossil provides the earliest evidence of Homo sapiens in Eurasia. So remember, before we get the types of haplogroups like the CT and DE and CF and all that stuff, you get the oldest fossils of Homo sapiens outside of Africa. So remember that. That's very important. So this is said 200,000 years ago. So that's very important. And also this paper is from 2019. So it's going to let us know a little bit of understanding. It says, it just talks about some things and whatnot. It says these results suggest that two late middle Paleolithic or Paleocene human groups were present at this site, right? An early Homo sapien population, right? Followed by a Neanderthal population. So it's even letting us know Homo sapiens are found in this area, and then Neanderthals are found in this area. So it's very important. Our findings support multiple dispersals of early modern humans said out of Africa, right? But we're gonna look at that a little more careful with those things and highlight the complex demographic process that characterize the Paleocene human evolution and modern human presence in Southeast Europe. So very, very interesting stuff. Let's keep on going. So it's just letting us know that was the earliest human ever found in Greece, said 210,000 years ago. That's in this cave that I just showed. There's a lot of other information on it. So you can see right here, it just talks about that area where we have Homo sapien fossils and Neanderthal fossils. So Neanderthals have movements from here all the way to here. This is where Denisovans are. We're going to link that as well. They go over here and they also settle in the area of the Levant. We're going to link those things as well. They'll talk about it that they're seen in Israel, some of the people that are found, like the Neanderthals and stuff like that. Let's close this. All right, so let's get a little more deeper into it to get a little understanding. All right, because we're going to work our way to modern humans and find out what's going on with the modern human haplogroups. Because when we think of what is an African and things like that, we got to find out where they came from, right? Where they go. So you already seen the root, but let's keep on going with this. So modern human ancestry. So you can see basically just talks about some new findings and everything with the new humans and everything. This is 2021. It's going to talk about basically some of the humans that they found, right? Classic groups, Neanderthals and Denisovans and things like that. This one's just talk about some things, right? I'm just going to go to another one, right? This is just some information. There's just extra. That one I just put there for extra. But let me read this to you. There's going to be another piece of information, right? So it's going to let us know some things. Let me just read a little bit of it. This is going to be from 2020. A reversal of human phylogeny. Homo left Africa as I might say this wrong. Erectus or I'm not gonna try to pronounce it, but I keep saying it weird. Come back as, and what happened is they'll talk about people that's not modern humans that they call Homo erectus, and they basically left. They say they left Africa, and when they came back to Africa, they came back as Homo sapiens. That all Homo sapiens did not start in Africa. They call it something different. They don't call it out of Africa. They also, you'll see some different things when they talk about out of Africa, but rather the direction of evolution in the phylogeny tree of modern humans, Homo sapiens sapiens, right? You'll see that sometimes as HSS. I'll address it when it comes up. Was established inter alia by the applying process phylogeny analysts to an empty DNA sampling that included a Eurasian Lund and the African Mambuti, Sen, and Yoruba, right? Seeing what's going on there, we're going to look at some of those things and what's going on there. Let's go down a little bit. Watch what it says here. The examination identified the African, just going to skip a little bit. What they will call it is something very special, but I'm just going to keep on skipping down a little bit just to get the meat for what it's talking about, because they're going to be connecting the Homo sapiens sapiens and the Homo sapien Neanderthals that basically demonstrated the temporal and physical Eurasian coexistence of the two lineages. So it's letting us know the Neanderthals and humans coexisted, but also they found out something interesting when sequencing the genetics. The results are consistent with the philo, I'm gonna just skip how that's worded, re-established presence of the Homo, remember we talked about the Homo erectus in Eurasia, right? Because remember, they talked about the Homo erectus left Africa. It was whatever it was, another species or something. Sometimes even people say the Homo erectus might not even be human with different things, but they'll say that it has connections with human, but that's not modern human, just so to get a little understanding of that. In Eurasia, Eurasian divergence between Homo sapiens and another type of human, which is Homo intercessor. Watch what it says here. When did they have a coexistence with these ones? It says 850,000 years before present, right? And Homo sapien divergence, I probably said it weird, between the Homo sapiens sapiens and Homo sapien Neanderthals, basically letting us know that it was a mix of Neanderthals and Denisovans. And they'll say that was 800,000 years before present. Just letting us know that looking at the empty DNA, right? Introgression from remember, Homo sapiens sapiens and into Homo sapien Neanderthals, 500,000 years before present, and a Eurasian divergence among the ancestor of extinct, right, Homo sapiens 250,000 years before present at the exodus of the Mambuti and San into Africa. Now listen to what he said. It's letting us know, basically what it's letting us know is that the Mambuti and the San are modern people. We'll look at that. There's a paper on the E1B1A replacing the Mambuti and the Koshin. That was talk about the San, the Koshin. They were the Koshin and the Mambuti was the first ones in Africa, but it's letting us know that they migrated into Africa. That's very important. That's very important to understand. What is letting us know these things? Even in the conclusion, it'll let us know some things of different things and whatnot. Talk about the Homo erectus. It says the findings that the Homo left Africa as erectus and returned as sapiens. So modern humans, Homo sapiens, back migrated into Africa, right? Constituted a change in the understanding of Homo sapien evolution to one that conforms to the extensive Eurasian record of Homo sapien and all these things. You see what's going on there? We'll get a little more deeper in it. Close this and let's get a little more deeper. So basically what I was showing you is that the highlight was this, that about the results and everything. is that when they're talking about this one called the Homo erectus into Eurasia, and it's talk about basically he became what you would see today as modern people. Let's go down a little bit. What it was basically concluded is this. You'll see when we're pointing it out that there were some people here. There were some people here. Remember, we seen an old fossil here about 210,000 years ago. And some people here and some people here. So that's very important. These are real fossils. This is why this type of information, when they came out with the out of Africa idea, it was based on modern people. It wasn't based on fossils, but fossils are actually rewriting how people understand these things. Let's look at another piece of information. All right. Let's get into what is said here. So the evolution history of Neanderthal and Denisovan Y chromosomes. So now we're going to actually see the Y chromosomes of Denisovans and Neanderthals, which is really interesting. Let me just go down and talk about that. I'm just gonna read something here. Remember, I was showing you that location here. I'm gonna show you what was in these locations. So these locations that you see here. I'm gonna go down a little bit. It says our estimates of Neanderthal modern human, the most recent common ancestor, TMRCA, including those obtained using the larger amount of data we generated from the same individual, the most recent common ancestor of 339 years before present. So just let us know that basically they're basically younger than the previous estimate of 588 years before present from the one that's found in what they call El Shaddai. I'm probably saying that weird right here. So they're letting us know that this one was older than some of the other ones that were found in certain areas, right? The ones right here, the ones in green, these will be Denisovans right here. That's why we have Denisovans here. And then these ones will be some of the Neanderthals that they have found, right? Let's go down a little bit. So they're found outside of Africa. It's very important. I'm going to read a little bit what it's talking about here, right? There's a little information on some things when they talk about basically what happened, when they talk about different humans and their gene flow and everything. Basically, this is, I'll just skip this part. This just talk about, testing the mtDNA is that they have close ties together. In fact, I'll start right here. In this respect, the mtDNA and the autosomal sequences of Neanderthals, Denisovans, and modern humans have revealed puzzling phylogenetic basically discrepancies. Just let us know of some things, because if you know, we're going to get to the point where they know that these are all humans. Neanderthals, Denisovans, they're still humans. But let's keep on going. I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you right off of the tree what we're looking at here. Let me close this. I'm going to show you right off the tree what we're looking at. We have the ancient findings. Remember that one in Spain? There's some in Russia. This is 210,000 years ago. We got some in Russia here. Remember, a modern human was said also found in this time frame, not in this location. It was found in Greece, but it's found in this time frame. So you can see 400. This one was 400,000 years ago. So that's very important. And then we'll start to see, if you look closely, we'll start to see the classic modern humans. So you'll see haplogroups here and whatnot. But one of the interesting ones would be A00, which, let me actually refresh this so you can see that real fast. So we can see some different individuals. So right here, this will be A00 right there. You can see right there, that would be A00 right there. So that one's found, that would be the root. The reason why I'm showing you A00, that would be the said root of all humans. But you're going to see some interesting things as we go about it. Let me just close that. All right, so that's why I'm showing you that. So you can see the A00 right there. These ones, sometimes when they pull up Y-DNA of the Neanderthal and Denisovan, sometimes you don't see it, but I'll show you their haplogroup. I'll show you what haplogroup they are. Just to get a little information of what I was just showing you on here. Here's a little piece. Remember, I was telling you that they came from Eurasia. They know that these came from Eurasia because that A00 was actually in Russia. So Eurasia is actually showing you that from Eurasia, they all break and they make all these other individuals. So that's very important. The analysts identified a Eurasian Y DNA, basically letting us know that is connected, right? That's that A00 right there. You see what's going on there? That's very important. It's letting us know about that A00. That was followed. So remember, Eurasian, identified a Eurasian Y DNA, A00. That was followed by 3 separate HSS, which are Homo sapien exoduses. Other Homo sapiens are A0, A1, and A. So you see what's going on there? From Eurasia into Africa. That's very important. Into Africa with A0, right? Signifying the earliest and the most recent of these early exodus. So the most earliest exodus of modern humans was that they went into Africa. So before you get all these other lineages, which you're also going to see that they're going to be linked to, your modern like France and stuff like that, other individuals and things like that. What this actually is connecting is another group. But before you get your A groups, you get them in areas outside of Africa, and they move into Africa based upon fossils, right? So the earliest divergence in figure 1 and between basically Homo, I don't know how you say that, and antecessor, probably said that weird, and HS. So sometimes you see HA, that's this type of human. You want to see it real fast and just show it. I'm not the best with some of these names, but we can get a little understanding on what they are and things like that. So here's what it's talking about. Homo ancestor. I'm not going to try to pronounce it again. But you can see right here, they'll say that they were found in certain areas. They'll say in the Spanish Sierra. You can see right a little understanding from basically Western Europe. So some individuals in Western Europe. So it's basically letting you know that humans were around them as well. They say they lived about 1.2 to basically 800,000 years ago. That's that 0.8 million years. That's 800,000 years old. That's why we was talking about that 800,000 years old, because they have connections with these individuals. So you see what's going on there? Let us know. So sometimes you see HA, I'll remind it, and HS, which is Homo sapiens, has been placed, right? Let us know some things, whatnot. At that time frame, and we was talking about that 850,000 years before present, as figure 1 shows that the HS Homo sapien branch split into a branch leading to extinct humans. Those extinct humans, that HSS, I forgot to mention that Homo sapien actually is, let me make sure I say this right, are actually the Neanderthals. What's also very important, I probably need to open up something to show you something real fast. There was a paper by Dr. Aaron Elhock about A00. We know that A00 is called the genetic atom, but A00 is actually not the actual branch that makes the modern humans. Let me show you what I mean. Sometimes you'll see it as that, but if you look on something like Family Tree DNA and look at their tree, A00 is 0% of the tree. There's a reason why. Because A00 is technically linked to the Denisovans in a way. Now I'll show you that real fast. This is something else. Let me go. Not this, but this is very important. Seen an individual break down this very deep video. He did a very deep video breaking down how humans are not animals. That was one of the best videos I've seen breaking down that humans are not animals. But let me show you something else real fast from another paper that I just need to read from real fast, as I think is important, but I didn't open. So I'm going to find it and then open it because it's kind of important. Let me make sure to see where it's at. Let me see. Sorry, I end up searching for this thing real fast. Here it is. Just some information, just some studies I was doing because I thought it was interesting finding, Noah and stuff and things like that. Let me see where is that. Not on this one. I know it's before this one. I put it in one of the videos. I could probably grab it from there. But let me see. Let me see if I overlooked it. It's just some information about Let me just go down a little bit. Let me make sure I didn't put the thing on here. I'm definitely gonna make sure I add it to this thing on that thing. But let me make sure I grab that real fast. Basically, what it talks about is, here it is. It's when I was talking about BT and CT. All right, so let me see if it's on here. Let me see real fast if it's on this one. I think it is. Ancestors, this and that. Let me type it down. So I think either if I didn't add on this, I can probably find it real fast, but I'll add it afterwards. I'm not gonna keep looking for it. I'll add it to the sources, just like I don't have no sources now. I'll add it later. But it's a paper by Dr. Aaron Elhock. I'll quickly summarize it. He talks about A00 that was basically a lineage of different individuals, basically. Just to get a little understanding. I'll put it in afterwards so you can read it. So continuing on to the Homo sapiens sapiens. That's why I connect Homo sapiens to Homo sapiens sapiens, which they are actually Denisovans. Just to get a little understanding. And another branch of Homo sapien in, or Homo sapien, how you say right here, Neanderthal in is probably said that weird, that gave rise to basically the Homo sapien Neanderthals, the NN, which is basically the Neanderthals. It says proper and basically HSND, which is the Homo, is also the Denisovans. Just to get a little understanding. Basically, getting words all twisted. The diversed early or diversed early into two branches. So let us know they diverse into early two branches. Just let us know the basically the Homo sapien NN and Homo sapien NN. There's just some different types of Neanderthals and things like that. It's just basically let us know that those individuals that were in Spain, remember I showed you, basically they're right here on this little map here. So some different groups. So sometimes they give them like different names and stuff. But those are the ancient humans that's up there in the north. The summary is what matters. It says inhabited northern Spain, while SNN, the type of Homo sapien, reigned both in Europe and Asia, as established by extensive Eurasian fossil finds. So that's very important. Fossils reveal the actual truth of the matter here, right? So here's another piece, a little information here, right? So this is going to be from 2001. It's going to let us know the undetectable, or I said that weird. Let me see. Undirectly phylogeny of the Homo sapien anchors the origin of modern humans in Eurasia. So this is very important. It's letting us know that modern humans are actually their homeland is in Eurasia. That's very important. They actually have a name for it. They don't call it out of Africa. So right here, out of Africa. I keep saying this word, basically hypertheist. That idea is a different idea compared to what is actually the results are showing. The results were consistent with the molecular out of Eurasia hypotheist, which is also out of Eurasia hypotheist. And Eurasian basically letting us know that that's where they're from. It's actually letting us know that people that's designed that out of Africa, that's not actually what actual fossils are showing. Rather, this is what it's showing. It's showing this. It says the comparison showed full phylogeny coherence between these two separate sets of data, right? The results were consistent with potentially 4 translocations of modern humans from Eurasia into Africa. You see what's going on there? Let us know some things. It's actually talking about that the humans that were in, as it says, the earliest taking place 250 years before present. You see what's going on there? The results were basically letting us know that it's basically, giving us understanding that the results were accordance, probably said that weird, with the postulates behind. Basically, this is what they support. The out of Eurasia at the time, as they lent no support to the out of Africa. So it's very important. It's letting you know that the actual fossils don't support out of Africa, but rather they support out of Eurasia is what it actually supports. So remember, we're showing new papers from 2000, for the 2020s and up, things like that, and some back then that you'll find out that they're not being displayed. So out of Africa, hypotheus is OOAH. Out of Asia or Eurasia, hypotheus is OOEH. It's a little understanding because we're going to talk a little more on it. The results were consistent with the molecular out of Asia hypotheus, OOEH, and Eurasian, right? Just letting us know that they were basically set in Eurasia, right? A subject that has been largely disregarded in the discussion of OOAH. It's basically saying whenever they talk about out of Africa hypotheus, they don't even talk about the ancient fossils of humans that show signs that they were mingling with Neanderthals before they was in Africa. It's very important. So a little more into it, right? Because remember, I showed you that those other information, other finds and stuff, those were actually very important. So that's what we was looking at. We're just looking at some of this. So a little bit from it. So you can see right here, the extensive Y-DNA study behind figure 3 showed a minimum of 5 waves of HH or HSS, Homo sapiens sapien, migration from Eurasia into Africa, while the more limited mtDNA sampling behind, I don't know why it says behind twice. Let me just remove that. I probably copied. I don't know why it's like that. That's most likely not like that on there. Behind DB identified a minimum of 3 migrations with each of these coinciding with the Y-DNA result, right? Consistent with the presence of both male Y-DNA and female mtDNA in each population migrating into Africa. So very important. So it's letting us know the Y-DNA and the mtDNA migrated into Africa. As apparent, a divergence, probably said that weird, between Mambuti and the Koshin, the Sen, prior to their migration into Africa, right? Remember, those are A and B groups. Into Africa would rise the number of waves into Africa by 1, as would also any migration connected to the BC branch. So little understanding, C was outside and stuff like that. That was basically on the mtDNA tree. The findings support conclusively that the results present in the basically the initial Y-DNA study, right? And the more recent mtDNA findings that have challenged, what have they challenged? The OOAH, the out of Africa hypothesis. So it's saying it's challenging the eugenic idea of out of Africa, saying that people who are dark skinned must have evolved and came out of Africa. But that's not true. In fact, what's interesting is that Africans actually show that they came from a ghost population outside of Africa. For example, the study, here's another piece of information. This is actually something like news and stuff to give a little information and whatnot. Ghost ancestors, African DNA study detects mysterious human species. Okay, so we're going to get some little information here. The study indicates that present-day West Africans trace a substantial portion, about 2 to 19% of their genetic ancestry to a extinct human species, what the researchers called a ghost population. You see what's going on there? Very deep. Let's get a little understanding of it. So Homo sapiens, here we go. Homo sapiens first appeared a bit more than 300,000 years ago in Africa. That's not true. We just already debunked that to get a little understanding of that. The later spread, because remember, this is on this news site, so they got to give what they know, right? From 2020, they're giving what they know because that's what was taught to the people out of Africa first. So they say that they were there, but they can't link it with a modern human with a fossil. So I'll go in Africa and later spread worldwide, right? Encountering other human species in Eurasia, that have since gone extinct, including the Neanderthal and the lesser-known Denisovans. Previous genetics research showed that our species interbred with both Neanderthals and Denisovans, with modern human populations outside Africa still carrying DNA from both. But while there is an ample fossil record, basically, giving us a little understanding of the fossil record of the Neanderthals and a few fossils of Denisovans, because they don't have a lot of fossils of them, but they have a few, right? The newly identified ghost population is more, getting some new findings of it, getting some interesting things when you're looking at it. As what details are known about this population? One of the individuals said, and they said not much at this stage. So very, 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 very rare information. But you're going to see that it's a very old population. We don't know where this population might have lived, whether it basically corresponds to the known fossils and what its ultimate fate was. So they don't know what happened to it. They didn't have a fossil of it. But you're gonna find out it's because they're testing their genetics and they're finding these interesting things in them. It says, and said this extinct species seemed to have diverse, or basically left or vanished roughly 650 years ago, 650,000 years ago, from the evolutionary line that led to Homo sapiens. So it's saying that this individual has evidence in these people, but they don't know where it's at. Before the evolutionary split between the lineages that led to our species and to Neanderthals. So they say they got some deep roots in them. So you can see what's going on there, and a little understanding of those things. Go down a little bit. So click that real fast. So that's a little bit of that ghost population. So ghost DNA hints at African. I don't know what's going on here. Probably doing that now. I don't know why it's doing that. I'm not gonna that. So just to get a little understanding. It's just talk about the ghost population of missing humans and whatnot. I'm not gonna buy that. All right. You can see right here, just to get a little understanding, just to get a clear understanding of what's going on, because I already broke this down. So ancient pre-flood people are noted in two main groups, basically Neanderthals, Denisovans, and some even mixed. There's other mixes in peoples and stuff like that, other different mixes and different peoples and stuff like that. Here's a little information of different mixes. Mom's a Neanderthal, dad's a Denisovan, different mixes that happen, human hybrids and whatnot. I talked about this before. We're going to go down a little bit. So here's a little information, just talking about breed who they call is a mix of a Neanderthal Denisovan. They call her Denny. Is a fossil of a girl who was at least 13 years old. They say she lived about 90,000 years ago. A mix, a hybrid of a Neanderthal and a Denisovan. So a mix of a Neanderthal and a Denisovan. Just a little understanding of those mixes and everything. So those were mixing, right? Just talk about an ancient species right here. In fact, this is probably from that thing. Probably took a little screenshot from it, I'm thinking, which is good that I did that. So right here, ancient girl parents were two different human species. So just let us know about that one individual I'll talk about from 90,000 years ago. Let us know that she was pretty much a mix of the Neanderthals and Denisovans. So some people was outside of Africa, pretty much. So it's a different mixing going on, right? Very, very deep stuff. Very, very deep. But now let's talk about what is those mixes, because I'm gonna reveal to you the Neanderthal DNA. I'm gonna show you the Neanderthal DNA. This is what a screenshot was from. So ancient human parents and whatnot. Get a little understanding on that. Let's close it. So now I'm gonna show you what are the Neanderthals Y DNA and the Denisovans DNA. A0, if you ever see this, A0000 is Denisovan. That's going to be the haplotype of Denisovan. Haplotype A00 is Neanderthal. That's a Neanderthal haplotype. It's going to be important because I'm going to show you where we find them and different things like that. So I'm going to click this, right? It's just going to give us a little understanding. Modern alleles in the Arctic human. Y chromosome supports origin of modern human parental or father lineages in Asia rather than Africa. So we're going to get a little study that apparently modern humans show that they're actually, with their Y chromosome, showing that they actually have origins outside of Africa. Why? Because we find their Y DNAs together with modern DNA. So here's a little information. Arctic Y chromosomes were found to carry a high function of modern alleles in sites that, according to the Asian model, differentiate. He's getting that word twisted. The original, right? It makes a difference of the original modern Y DNA, not yet affected by the admixture from the original Arctic Y DNA, or the Y, right, DNA, basically. Figure 1, figure 2, table 1, including A0000, which is Neanderthal, A00, which is Denisovan, or A00T in the African model. Very important. A00 is Denisovan, right? Remember we talked about that. A00 is Denisovan haplotype, and A00 or A000 4 zeros is Denisovan, and A000 is Neanderthal type. And then we get the modern, what's said like modern humans, like A0 or A00, A0T, things like that. AB is actually CT, or ABCDE, which is actually F-M89. That's something that's important. So you can see right here, just getting us a little information, letting us know that basically what they found these groups together. They found Fs, they found Ts, they found BT, they found A and B, right? That's what they're showing. They found this one, they found A and B, they found BT, they found CT, they found F. That's very important. They found them together with the Neanderthals and Denisovans. So you're seeing haplo types. That's what you're seeing. So it's letting us know about those. For example, for sites defining A0T, the Asian model has the original modern Y chromosome carrying A0T alleles, while the original Arctic Y carrying A00 or non-A0T alleles. You can see right here, this is what's going on there. Letting us know about the admixture. Basically, co-evolution with, because I'm going to show you a paper that is going to let us know that they did mix. Co-evolution with admixed modern autosomals will result in mutation in modern alleles, so A0T alleles, in individuals carrying the Arctic Y chromosomes, right? You can easily look it up. If you look up A00, show it real fast, that we're looking at modern humans. A00, right? Are modern humans. A00, A0, A1A, A1B. These are haplogroups that are modern humans. It'll let you know that these are modern humans. So say roughly 200. They'll say it's roughly this time frame, but we found them older than that. So that's very important. We didn't find, when they have, a lot of times when they put these papers, they're based on modern information. That's why we don't live off of wiki. We live off of real information. So right here, but wiki, it has sources and stuff like that, but you got to always source check. So this one say roughly 270,000 years ago. But what you're seeing here is older stuff, way, way older. And they're fossils. That's what makes it interesting. And close this. So we're working our way to what we see today. Why do you see the world the way it is today with all these things? So it's very interesting stuff. Let me close that. All right. So just to read a highlight from that little paper that I was just showing you there. Let me make sure that's the same paper. Yep. It says, we estimate that the time to the most recent common ancestor, the TMRCA, of Neanderthal and modern human Y chromosome, right? What is the mixture? What's going on there? They estimate it at 588,000 years ago. See what's going on there? With 95% confidence with all those things. We're not confident interval. You can see right here, basically it's letting you know they put 588, but they usually always do this. They give also an estimate what they have a confident time frame. So they say no less than 447,000 years ago to 806,000 years ago. This is 2.1. Basically letting us know, skip a little over, times longer than the most recent common ancestor of A00 and other, they say, extinct modern humans, or exact modern humans, extinct modern humans, human Y chromosome lineages. Okay, so getting us a little understanding. So remember A00, we can see that. I forgot what the person's name. They found it in a person in America and stuff. This estimate suggests that the Y chromosome diversity, I probably said it weird, mirrors the population diversity. I don't know why I say it right in my head and it won't come out. I was told I have a little speech impediment, but it's, you know, if you look at it, you can see what it is. The Neanderthal and modern human ancestor. So it's letting us know the estimate of this Y chromosome of this calculation is letting you know the actual mix of the Neanderthal and the modern human, right? What does it also do? It has some very interesting things. It refutes the alternative scenario of a relatively recent or super Arctic origin for Neanderthal Y chromosomes. The fact that the Neanderthal Y we described has never been observed in modern humans suggests that this lineage is most likely extinct. So they already talked about that this lineage, this early lineage that's also human, is extinct. It's actually a extinct lineage. So here's another one, little piece. So that's just giving a little. That was just giving a little understanding of those things. Then let's know about the mixing of the Neanderthals and modern humans and Y chromosomes. So getting us a little understanding of the connection there. So we have seen that before when they're connecting these things. You want to know when this came out. This actually came out fairly recent. This was actually 2016. So you can see what's going on there, right? So some very deep, some very, very deep stuff that not a lot of people are talking about. And so this one I wrote, and humans are not related to monkeys. So that's very important to know. Humans are not related to monkeys. In contrast, this is what they write on there. In contrast, the chimpanzee and A00 sequences share just 4 SNVSs, not present in other sequences. And the chimpanzee and the human, right, is letting us know about the modern human. The chimpanzee and the human reference sequences shared 0. So it's letting you know that what they're connecting is they saying A00 seems close. They got something connected with the chimpanzee in a way. But the modern human, no, not so. So a lot of times you got to be careful when they have sequences, when they say humans are related to monkeys. Usually they're doing tests on that A00, and they're basically pulling up some things with A00. Keep thinking about where I put that paper for Aaron Elhock. I wonder did I put it on this. We have estimated that the Neanderthal Y chromosome from, remember the one that was showing you on that map from Spain, which was up here, going up. So right here, the one in Spain, right there. I don't know if how you say that, El Shidaran, something like that. Go down a little bit. So it's letting us know some information on these individuals. Go back up a little bit. So obviously, this is from this as well. We have estimated that the Neanderthal Y chromosome from that area in Spain, El Shidaran, diverged from those of modern humans 590 KYA, years before present, a value similar to the most recent common ancestor estimated for mtDNA sequences, 400,000 years before present, to 800,000 years before present in Spain. So it's letting you know that this one right here, I'm going to click here, right? It's letting you know that humans were over here a long time ago. So remember, we found some humans that said 210,000 years ago over here. And they're saying some was over here too. So that's very interesting. So that's a long time ago in that area. So you can see what's going on there, right? Very, very deep stuff. Very, very deep. You can get a little understanding on those things. But let's keep on keeping on. I'm gonna just reset this. So that was just some information on some very old finds and whatnot. Oh, I just closed it. We don't need to reset it. Another quote from this site, from this one. Sequencing the genomes of extinct hominids, or how you say that, is basically talking about humanoids and whatnot, has reshaped our understanding of modern human origins, right? Has this reshaped your understanding of modern human origins? Here we analyze basically some information, Y chromosome DNA from a Neanderthal individual from that one in Spain, right? El Chadron in Spain. We investigate its divergence from skip that. Talk about they basically estimate it with chimpanzees and modern human sequences, and say they find a strong support for a model that places the Neanderthal lineage as an outgroup to modern human Y chromosomes, including A00. So it's letting you know, since they compared the A00 with monkeys, they say that A00 is, close to that and whatnot. But remember, A00 is a little different. That's another thing. Let me just do a little scroll real fast. Let's take a look here. That's another little thing that is also important to know. Let me see if I want to find that paper now. Let me see if I can find that real fast. I'm going to grab it for you, show you that real fast if I could. Let me see if I could. How do you spell his name? El Hawk. Probably spelled it all weird. I don't think that's how you spell it. Let me see how you spell his name real fast. Is that it? Yeah, I was missing the I. Let me actually copy it real fast. This is a geneticist. He did a little study on A00. Let me see if I can find it. I'm missing the I there. See if I have it here real fast. Yes, right here. All right, so I just added this to some information when looking at that crazy theory of eugenics. But I think I put it at the bottom. Yeah, here it is. All right. Let me show you it. Let me show you this paper. So you can see right there, Aaron Elhock. He has some information on A00. Let me show you what he says about A00. This is what he says. So they just say some very interesting things. I'm gonna just skip right to this part right here. The Y chromosome of a descendant of Albert Perry, African American from South Carolina, right? Born at this time frame, long time ago, like 100 years ago, was recently identified as representing an outgroup lineage to all other known Y haplotypes presently identified in the human population. So what it's saying is saying Albert Perry, A00, is different than everyone else's Y chromosome. That people aren't actually linked to A00, or they're saying people will be linked to A0000 or A000. You see what I'm saying? Basically, what they're concluding is that his Y chromosome, which we're going to see is dubbed A00, is an outgroup. That's important. It's an outgroup lineage from other Y chromosomes. As I said before, it doesn't start at A0. It doesn't start at A. It actually starts at CT and BT. That's how everyone splits. That's how you get AB groups. That's how you get CF groups. And that's how you get DE groups from BT and CT. But A00 is different. We will refer to the Y chromosome as Perry's Y chromosome because the region of the Y that was examined is the basically just talk about the X degenerate and whatnot. Non-recombining portion of the Y. Watch what it says here. It's going to be very interesting. Expected to be nearly identical between Albert Perry and his male descendants, right? Now watch what they say here. This Y haplotype was dubbed A00 in reference to a previously recognized oldest lineage that was renamed as A0. The identification of a novel Y haplotype is always exciting because it was a new find. It was really interesting. And this new haplotype in particular is unique in its basal portion on the Y haplotree, which justifies its moniker, or it's basically how they named it. They named it the Y chromosome atom haplotype. So you see what's going on? However, the announcement by Mendez at this finding that the basically letting us know the time of all human Y chromosomes, or the time of the most common or the most recent common ancestor, TMRCA, is approximately 338,000 years ago. You see what's going on there? With remember they talk about that confidence and whatnot. Always have an in between from 237,000 years ago to 581 years ago. Was surprising on many levels. First, this estimate is more than double the oldest previous estimate, right? And is hugely larger than all the other previous estimates and whatnot that range from these things. Why? Because remember what he said in the first place. It was a outgroup. Why? You can look it up on Family Tree. I'll show you where A00 is on Family Tree. Because I did a lot of extensive studying on it. I actually used to think it was linked to something like, something spiritual or something. Like, how does this even work? But once I started looking more into it, it's more interesting the more you look into it, because it looks like it has links to Denisovans. And that's where we found it, in Denisovan caves in Russia. It's actually not African American. It's actually not African. It's actually Denisovan. Close to Denisovan. Now, this is modern humans. Everything that you see here is modern humans. Why? You can see they'll say 100% of the tree. They'll say this one is this much and whatnot and whatnot. I'm going to close this. This is where A00 is. A00 is on this branch that says 0% of the tree. So this is going to be where you get your A00s and its family line and whatnot. It's a little different than here. So it doesn't make what CT and BT makes, which is right down here, which is your IJKs and all that, and DEs and whatnot. So that's why they call it the outgroup. They call it the outgroup because it makes different lineages. A00 doesn't actually make everyone. So very interesting stuff. Let's go over here. So just want to show that and clarify it. So letting you know some things. That's why they say that outgroup, the outgroup to modern human Y chromosomes, including A00. So outgroup, different than everyone else. The highly, basically letting you know, I'm going to skip right here. We estimate that the time to the most recent common ancestor, the TMRCA, of Neanderthal and modern human, now he's letting you know how did Neanderthal and modern human, when did they link, is sooner. It's older than that A00. It's letting you know that Neanderthal mixed with humans is 588,000 years ago, right? See what's going on there with confidence from 400 to 47,000 years ago to 806,000 years ago. You see what's going on there? Very, very deep stuff. So Neanderthals are known to be in the north over here, and then the Denisovans are known to be all the way in these areas. So we get a little understanding on those things, a little summary on it. Very interesting stuff. Very, very interesting stuff. A little more. Ancient protein analysis provides evidence for a close relationship between, remember I was talking about that other individual? This is why it stretches it back long time ago, because it's connected with this individual that's said to be millions of years old. It says that they actually found out that the proteins show that these individuals, us, Homo sapiens, and Neanderthals and Denisovans have connections. It's basically saying that we're not finding different species, we're finding other humans, right? Oh, and you see what's saying? Oldest ever human genetic evidence clarifies dispute over our ancestors, 2020. So it's letting you know that 800,000-year-old human fossils and things like that, genetic information from an 800,000-year-old human fossil has been received for the first time. So you see what's going on there? Actual human, who we are, and a long time ago. So it's getting a little understanding, right? See what's going on there. A little interesting information. Let's go back. Let's go down and get a little understanding on these things. So very deep stuff. This is a video of Noah's flood. I think this was one of the best videos I've seen on Noah's flood. This individual goes very, very deep. He goes extremely deep into these things. I highly recommend his channel. This video will be on this note. This note is actually
right. It was found on the.
This note is actually going to be the note on F. So if you already have this note, it's already on the F-M89 video, or this will be posted in the video afterwards. So you just go down, and if you go down, you'll start to see where we'll start talking about. Sometimes I put a little large space. Probably didn't put a large enough space here. I'll just put a larger space to separate it from the F information. And it just talks about the information on Neanderthals and what they are. So remember, humans, A00, started in Eurasia. That's why I showed you with the fossils and things like that, that the A00 even started in Russia right there. So Russia, A00 started in Russia. Very interesting information. So go back over here. So if any questions or anything, let me know, and we'll touch on it, beloved family. Go down a little bit. All right. Go down into this part here. So that's some information when we talk about the flood, because now we're gonna switch over to the flood. So flood, little information. What not a lot of people know, what a lot of people don't know is that the world didn't look like this long ago, and the flood was what you see today wasn't because of millions and millions of years, but it was something that happened extremely fast. So there's a lot of information on the flood. I'm not gonna go into it right now. I'm gonna have to do another video and talk about that. That's information. People know that modern humans have a genetic bottleneck. It's a record of a genetic bottleneck. There's no doubt. There's other things that we can go into with that. I talked about it before that all the Neanderthals, all those ancient people, all their genetics are wiped out. They were all wiped out. Every single one of them, right? The Neanderthals, the Denisovans, every single one of them are wiped out. All of them. That's the evidence of the flood. All modern humans stem from BT and CT. I talked about that before, that's the line of Noah. That BT and CT is the line of Noah that makes everyone today. That's going to be very important to know. All right. And I talked about it before, how the flood can actually cause when you're looking at the carbon dating and stuff like that, that's very important to know that a lot of times the flood, because things inside the earth came out of the earth, you got to also understand that's going to change how we're trying to measure how old things are today based on what happened long ago, right? A lot of things happened long ago. Interesting stuff. Roughly 1.8 million year old human fossil previously unearthed in Georgia. So this is really interesting. Suggests that those extinct humans were small. Remember I showed you about that small human earlier in the video? It just shows you that the oldest humans were small-bodied hominins, about 3 feet tall, 9 inches to 5 feet, 5 inches. So you see what's going on there? In height, you can see they're also way low. They're like 88 pounds or 100 pounds as the weight of an adult. So very interesting. So 5.1 million years ago, fossils rewrites out of Africa theory. You see what's going on there? So the real fossils are starting to rewrite the out of Africa theory. If out of Africa is eugenics. So you see right here, they're getting some fossils that's changing it. This is 2022. As of 2022, people are seeing these things. So this is the generation of truth. You see what I'm saying here? Generation of truth. Let's bring it out. So I'll close that. So you can also see it talked about. This thing just talks about it. I'll let it talk about it real fast so you can hear what he's saying.
1.5 million year old human vertebra found in Israel unknowns in human history revealed. Scientists have revealed that the vertebra found at the Ebadi site in Israel's Jordan Rift Valley belonged to a child who died 1.5 million years ago.
All right, just a quick summary on that. Quick summary on that thing. Go down. So now you know about these ancient finds. We're going to now start talking about the migration of BT and CT, the lineages of DE and CF, and other A groups. So A00 modern people. So it's all under BT and CT. Therefore, by the time we got DE and CF, they were considered out of Africa. So you see what I'm saying here? It's very important. So humans were outside of Africa a long time ago. So let's talk a little bit about something. The flood story is true. I'm gonna show you a scientific method to show you that the flood story is true.
According to Dr. Brown's theory, the ancient world that Noah lived in was very different from the Earth we occupy today.
Noah and other pre-flood people probably lived on one very large supercontinent with lush vegetation, inland seas, and major rivers. The mountains were smaller than today's, perhaps 6,000 feet high. Before the flood, about half the Earth's water was in interconnected chambers, about 10 miles below the Earth's surface. This formed a thin spherical shell, almost a mile thick. The pressure in the subterranean chamber had been increasing for centuries because the gravity of the sun and moon produced tides in the subterranean water that lifted and lowered the Earth's massive crust twice a day. This tidal pumping added gigantic amounts of energy to the subterranean water. This increasing pressure in the subterranean water steadily stretched the crust as a balloon stretches when the pressure inside increases. Failure in the crust began as a microscopic crack that grew in both directions at almost 3 miles per second. The crack, following the path of least resistance, encircled the globe in about 2 hours. As the crack raced around the Earth, the overlying rock crust opened up like a rip in a tightly stretched claw. So the water exploded violently out of the rupture. The Bible even gives us a precise date, the 600th year of Noah's life, on the 17th day of the 2nd month. On that day, all the fountains of the great deep burst open. Then it says, and the rain fell. The fountains of water jetted supersonically into and above the atmosphere. The spray from these enormous fountains produced torrential rain such as the Earth has never experienced before or after. The supersonic fountains eroded the crumbling rock on both sides of the widening crack. This produced huge volumes of sediments that settled through the floodwaters, trapping and burying plants and animals, forming the fossil record. Eventually, the crack became so wide that the newly exposed floor of the subterranean chamber sprung upward, giving birth to the mid-oceanic ridge that wraps around the Earth like the seam of a baseball. The continental plates, with lubricating water still beneath them, slid downhill away from the rising mid-Atlantic ridge. After the massive, slowly accelerating continental plates reached speeds of approximately 40 to 50 miles per hour, they ran into resistances, and like a runaway crashing train, they compressed, crushed, buckled, and thickened, rising out of the floodwaters. This is why the major mountains are generally parallel to the oceanic ridges from which they slid. Today's major mountains were all pushed up in hours.
So there's a lot of evidence with that. For example, if you research, you can see that India moved, and India actually formed Mount Everest. Mount Everest is because of India moving really fast and hitting the continent of Eurasia. And actually, it was actually at first, India was actually connected with Africa, and it broke off and it moved up and it hit the upper area and created Mount Everest. Really interesting stuff. Really interesting stuff. So scientific method, we'll go deep into it another live. We'll go deep right into the information of the Noah's flood and how it's a fact. There's fossils on mountains and things like that, and things like that. Now, let's get a little understanding. Do you know that when you look at the world today, don't just look at the world today and say that's how it always was, but it was different. Also, you know how much water is actually inside the Earth? That if the water inside the Earth shot out, it can flood Earth. There's more water. Scientists know today that there's more water inside the transition zone of the Earth, more deeper than the ocean. This is a real thing. And you can see different people talk about it. For example, here, I'll show you a little example.
Scientists have thought for a while now that there may be water trapped within the Earth's mantle. Yeah, a secret ocean underneath our oceans, inside the Earth. This would change our common understanding of what the Earth looks like on the inside. And now there's new evidence that provides even more support for this idea, and that has.
So that's what I'm showing you is real things, that these things really happen, and the fossil record is showing these things. That's why you're getting dinosaurs millions and billions of years old and different things like that. But you see that these ancient humans that show that the humans actually had a migration into Africa millions of years ago. So long time ago, and you get other tiny little humans and things like that. So very interesting. So inside the Earth, there's more water in the Earth than outside of Earth. It was found because they searched diamonds that were inside the Earth, and they found that there was a lot of water inside the Earth. So really, really interesting. Very, very interesting stuff. So let's now get into the movement of these things. So let's now talk about some things that we're more familiar with, the movement of these things. How did people, we know that people started up here in these areas. We know that the ones that were up here came into Africa. We know these ones also have moved to these areas and came into Africa. We know that these people have moved into Africa, into these different areas. That's very important. So very, very important. But now let's talk about some of the information that's very interesting. Like modern people, modern information. Modern people give us some interesting outlooks of things. For example, I'm gonna just leave this down here. Let's talk about movements of people into Africa. Let me just think about what I want to touch on first. I'm gonna touch on a little information of I was talking about. Now let's talk about what happened in Africa and whatnot and different things like that. I had talked about before that a long time ago, the Arabian Peninsula and Africa was connected. There was one continent, and there was no water in the Mediterranean Sea, or the area right here you see. There was no water in this area. There was no water in this area, what's called today the Red Sea. There was no water in these areas. And people end up moving, right? Because remember, we found some over here, modern people over here, they was able to walk across here. They could easily walk across here, and people here can go over here. So these are all one continent. Is in fact, you see this little line right here? This is called the African plate. So you can see right there, the African plate, it includes Israel, all connected. The Arabian plate is right here. So the African plate includes Israel, all these little areas, and the Arabian plate is over here. But people were moving into these areas. Into a time came that these split, and then water basically came into here, and water came into this area from the outside area. So that's very important to know. So water, that's why we see today the water, because this has split. That opening there caused the ocean water coming. That's why this is called the Red Sea, because that's seawater. That's not a lake or nothing. That's not a natural lake that's coming out. That's actually the sea, because he spread and then water came in. And also right here, water came in from this area. So water came in and entered in these areas. So that's why these are all flooded. That's why it looks like this today. It was a different world back then. Things looked a little different. These things may seem like it could take a long time, but not necessarily. So it's very, very important, very interesting to understand. Go back over here. So migrations of peoples going into the land of Africa. I talked about it with this. And remember, this one started about 100,000 years ago to 40,000 years ago. We know the DE group was in. I already showed it. If you look up DE, look up the fossils, not the one that's trying to connect D0 and say that, oh, DE must always been in Africa. But look at the fossils. The information of DE lets you know that the fossils were actually in the areas of Asia before it got into Africa. But they moved into Africa. That's very important. In fact, we know that, here's a little piece of information. We know that if we look at some of the people in this area, in the Mediterranean basin, this area here that I'm going to show. So this little area over here. So in these areas, we found some fossils over here. And I'm going to show you the fossils real fast. So they went here. They have connections here as well. So in these areas, we're going to see some very interesting things from here and here, and some here as well. So this little area is going to be some interesting migrations that had happened in these areas real fast. So let's talk about that. Close this real fast and talk about that. So it says something about the E group because it's known to be African, but we got to note migration. That's what's very, very important. It gives us a little understanding of some things because we know that the oldest E's are found in a group called the Natufian. Their movement is moving into a group called the Gasulians, and then they end up moving into Africa. So just a little information. So two other dates, just a little information on different groups and the Tufian things, whatnot. It just talks about what happened and everything. Just letting you know about the the movements of clusters that had came from the upper area and moved into Africa. Just gonna talk about another place real fast. Haplogroup E, mainly represented by basically E1, B1, B1, this one, V13, displayed basically some frequencies in that area I just showed you on the map right here. So it shows some frequencies there. And this is what it says. It says frequencies in an area compared to other areas. V13 was thought to have basically, been through the Mediterranean expansion. And you can see how long ago, 7,000 years ago, starting from the Balkans. So starting from the Balkans. So the Balkans, you probably know where that's at, but I'll just show that real fast in the map. So moving from the Balkans. So remember I showed that modern humans were settled in these areas and stuff. So that's very important. So it's saying that they must have been here and then they had some movements from here to there. So that's just very important to get a little understanding. And that's important too, because we can link that to their oldest root, the oldest root. Its dispersal to the northern shore of the Mediterranean basin. It's basically letting us know that it's aligned with the Greek and Anatolian expansion to the Western Mediterranean. So you see what's going on there? Characteristic of the region surrounding a different area, and basically the most recent common ancestor estimated in this area for this haplogroup. Basically letting you know that it's connected there, also with some E1B1As. A few E1B1A V38 chromosomes were also observed in the same region, right? We had talked about that E1B1A. If you look up the Natufian, a lot of times you don't see a lot of stuff included, but let me show you something. There's a culture called the BMAC culture. If you look up the BMAC culture, you'll find something really interesting. They're a group that's found in this area. So they have some connections to these areas, but they're going to be found here, the BMAC culture. I'm just going to show you something with the BMAC culture in this area. So they say that they have some ties with that. You see right here, the BMAC culture right here. So BMAC. And this is what they find in the genetics of the BMAC culture, which is very interesting, which I talked about before. But let me show that real fast. Let's see where that's at. Probably overlooked it. Just gonna look real fast where that is. Right here, genetics. So in 2018, they did some analysis on the BMAC culture in the Bronze Age sites, and they found out that they contain certain groups and controversial groups like E1B1A and E1B1B. And I'm gonna show you the fossils real fast. I'll show you the fossils that we had found and we had talked about it. I'm gonna click it. See, this is why I like Wiki, because you can click the sites. So I'll just go right here and you can click this site right here. So we had talked about this, the genomic formation of South and Central Asia. And if you go to the supplementary material right here, supplementary material, you can see right there, the supplementary material, click data and tables, because you want to see the table, and that's going to show you what they actually found there. And they didn't just find an E1B1A in the Bronze Age over there, but they also found one a long time ago, very, very long time ago. And we had talked about them, that E groups, actually, the reason why we know E groups are from the north is because they're mtDNA. I'm going to show you real fast. In fact, I probably clicked the wrong thing. No, I didn't. So down here, this is modern people, just making sure. So you can see the culture here. We're going to go to what they found there. Okay, so let's go down. So there it is, E1B1A. And if we look carefully for that E1B1A, you see that mtDNA of K2, right? A lot of individuals have the K group. It's found in Belt Cave, right? And the year is interesting, 12,000 to 8,000 BC. So very interesting for that one, right? So E1B1A is from the north. That's very important. Go down a little bit, as all humans are from the north. as it says in the Bible, that all humans started at Mount Ararat. And the verse from there, all modern humans. And we can see right here another E1B1A with a J1 mtDNA. All these are under N. They're under mtDNA N. So this is the one in the Bronze Age, or in a sense. Let me just go over to make sure I'm clicking the right one. So this one, let me just set it at the bottom. So I'm looking at the right one. So this one, just go over here. So Turkestan, Goner, you can see right there. So that's about the biblical time frame. So they have a potential of being Shemites. So that's very important. Why? Because we can go over that. We went over that before. So 2130 to 1948 BC. So you see what's going on there. So E1B1A found in these upper areas. Why that's important? Because a lot of times they link them with groups like the Mota and things like that. But if you note the Mota, they're younger than these ones. They'll be younger than these ones. So that's about 4,000 years ago. That one right there, 4,000 years ago. 4,000 years ago will be about 2000 BC. So get a little understanding. So we talked about that. Close that. So why is that important? Because noting migrations is important. It's important to be fair. Because if we look at other groups, like for example, the T group, the T group was in Africa a long time ago, maybe even before the E1B1A got down there. Here's some information. In fact, let me show what it is. Let me just show what I'm showing here. Because many groups went into Africa. Many different groups went to Africa, but E1B1A was dominant in Africa. That's what made E1B1A a little different, because it dominated Africa. So just letting us know about some samples of the U6 and M1, both of which are associated with the back migration to Africa from Eurasia in upper Paleolithic times, and observed, basically just letting you know that they set in those areas, along with K1, T2, and X2. Those are mtDNA, which are basically found in Anatolia and Europe samples and whatnot. Regarding parental lineage or male lineage, individuals carry Y chromosomes distinctly related to typical North African E-M81, while Y chromosomes from KEB belong to T-M184. I talked about that before when we had talked about the Gasulians moving into Africa. That's evidence of the Gasulians moving into Africa, right? So that's going to have a T group. So it's letting you know this haplogroup has also been observed in European Neolithic individuals. It says both mtDNA and Y lineages, K1, J2, K2 haplogroups, and G-M201 haplogroups, respectively. For examples, basically, they know that they were in Spain or Iberia and things like that, are similar to those observed in Europe during the Neolithic time. We can see right here. The reason why I'm showing you this, because what I'm actually showing you here is some lineages that they found in Africa and Iberia, or Spain. You can see right here. These are going to be some that was found in certain areas. You can see in these little areas. So that's mtDNA right there, and then that's the DNA of the individuals that were found also in Africa. So you can see different ones that went down there. So very interesting. Migrations are always really interesting. I'm gonna click this. So that's why I was showing you some of those connections. Let me just read something here. Among Eurasian ancient populations, early Neolithic Moroccans are distantly related to Levantan Natufian hunter-gatherers, 9,000 BC, years before present. Because if once I get Will here, Will son of Yah, he's going to talk about some interesting things, which is I think is fairly interesting. Like, for example, the movements of the Natufians. The Natufians make some interesting movements. They go into Sumer and different areas and things like that. Those movements are fairly interesting as well, as I think it's very important to note these things. Let me just close that. So that's just getting some information. This is the screenshot. I probably don't even need to look at that. So it's letting us know about those individuals coming from the Natufian homeland. You can type it down, Natufian homeland. It'll show you that it's in the Levant. That's where they were, and they went downwards. So, and remember, we already confirmed that all modern humans are actually out of Africa. So letting us know that they had some migrations into basically areas. So letting you know some things. Also, I had talked about this before, that the R group, this is information on the R group, that the R group before the year 4000 BC, they are known to go into Africa. They come from this area. This is their movement. They come from this area and they go down, some go up, but they go to here, to this limit, because there's another culture here, some other cultures that stop them from basically going this way, but they come over here and they stop about here, and some go over here and they go downwards. We know because it talks about how they went to Sumer and then they go downwards into here and they go into Africa. That's why if you look at the Chads, it's a group. They look dark skinned, but they have a lot of R groups, and they went into Africa and they went out through Spain. We know because if we can look at a route. So here's a little understanding from 5,000, 4,000. We can get a little understanding. So R enter into this area. You can see if we look on the chart, R enter into this area right here, megalithic. The megalithic, we have R's there, V88. That's going to be in the Chads, V88, in the Chad group. Just to show a visual of them. I'll just show people, Chad people of Africa. So here's what they look like. So the Chad people of Africa, they look like this, but their haplogroup is is this R1b-V88. So the Chad group actually have R1b-V88. So it's very interesting when you get a look at it. So there you can see R1b-V88. Some interesting things. So, and they look like this. So pigmentation isn't a representation of peopling. Pigmentation is a limitation for people who are focused on eugenics. That's very important. Or it's something that is taught. Some people have it in their mind because they're taught it in schools and stuff like that. But that's what happened. They came through this area. But notice they're not in these areas. Let's look at in this time frame from 5,000 to 4,000. You can see that R group, R1b, is not in this area. It's not in this area, which is called Kaldrum pottery culture. If you look in Kaldrum pottery culture, we get E1B1B there, T and J, but we don't get R there. They're not there at that time. But later on, they do enter in this area later on. So this one is about 3,000 years. The other one was 4,000 and 5,000 BC. And you can see if you look closer, you can see obviously in this area, we're going to have some E1B1Bs in this area here. But if you look in these little areas here, we don't have them there, but they're all in these areas. They're all from the north. R comes from these areas. So you can see R1b goes up here, R1b goes up there, R1b goes over here. So you can see right there for these ones. And then you note one from 2000 BC, like 2,800 to 2,500 BC. Then you start to notice R1b goes over here. R1b goes over here. And they also become the bell beakers because they were already over here. So they start to meet these ones over here and they start to dominate. R1b is a dominant lineage later on when it gets up here. Not early, but later on because they go into Africa. So that's 6,000 years ago. R went into Africa 6,000 years ago. So that's very important. So then you see them as bell beakers. So R1b, bell beakers is going to be right here, the bell beakers. So these all are bell beakers. And then you start to notice in certain areas and these areas. So very interesting to note that. So very, very, very interesting to get a little understanding. So you can see in these little areas here. So very interesting. They also in the Levant with E1B1B. So that's very interesting as well. So very important to note migration. Very important to note migration because you don't want to exclude people just because they dominate an area, right? Though R dominates the north, doesn't mean R always been in the north. And though E1B1 dominates the south, doesn't mean E1B1 always was in the south. You see what I'm saying? That's just very important to note with migrations, to be fair. As that's how real science and real examinations work. You should always be fair and not have a bias, or not look at the whole picture. So that's what's always important. If someone can show me a E1B1A in Africa 50,000 years ago, then we'll talk. But E is not in Africa that old. The oldest E1B1A in Africa is about 4,000 years ago. Not more than 5,000 years ago. No more than 5,000 years ago. But we already see that remember, the dates that I'm showing you here are also exaggerated. But we see that these pieces of information let us know that other individuals were moving into different areas much earlier. That's why I was showing you this information right here. That this information was done by a geneticist, and he said before that time frame came, before this time right here, a map of R1b haplotype locations considered in this study until they arrived in Iberia. So remember, the time that they arrive here is not through this way. They don't go through this way and enter here. They go down into Africa. And that's why some go deep into Africa. That's why you get Chads right in the middle of Africa, R1b, that rules in this area and then goes into this area. So that's 4,000 years before present. So that's older than Malta. So that they go down there, and that's R1b. It's very important. We can also note that with J groups where they go. We can note that with other groups where they go. That's important to note migration. Very important to note migration fairly. So you get a little understanding on those things. So migration. All right. So with that, see if the brother pop in. If not, shalom, family. Shalom. So with that, if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll quickly summarize what we had talked about and whatnot. I'll make sure I add that. So I'll add all these notes afterwards. So here's what we were talking about. That the biblical narrative makes perfect sense when you understand that the world wasn't like this before, and what was inside the earth came out of the earth, and that can cause things to have astronomical dates. That's what's important. That what was inside the earth came out of the earth, and it caused things to have astronomical dates when you date the fossils and things like that. So sometimes you'll have astronomical dates and stuff. As we know that these things are things that can be controversial, but we can find the truth to the matter. That's why I showed you the oldest fossil, or the oldest evidence of humans that has been found in layers that Dr. Marley of Cambridge University told us was 600 million years old. It said that the fossils tested of the humans were said 600 million years old. And that's in New Zealand. So that would be, out of Africa. So, and we also confirmed it with the papers that we had talked about. So very interesting stuff. We also had remember we talked about the movement when we confirmed it with the papers of how they even confirmed A00 being out of Africa, being born in Eurasia. And then the mixtures of autosomal information shows that humans were mixing with species that went extinct a long time ago. And it lets us know that they were doing that in the north, in areas of Spain and different areas like that. And we will talk about that in these areas that they were mixing. We also were talking about where we find them, right? We found them in Spain, Russia, earliest humans, Belgium, Germany, things like that. And we can see the haplotypes and things like that, right? C groups and A00s. And when we talked about the movement of other A groups and things like that. And then we talked a little bit about the flood. I'll talk about it more in another video. I'll go into depth of the flood and things like that. The earth had more water inside of it. We talked about that it's possible for it to shoot water out, flood the whole earth just from the water inside of it. And we talked about how you got to be careful on saying who's African, right? Be careful on saying who is a native African because it might just shock you on how old these dates actually get. So very important to know that. Very, very important to know. So with that, I guess that's all I got for you for now, family. So with that, if any questions, let me know. Otherwise, modern people are not native to Africa. And the E1B1A group is not native to Africa. It moved into it. So with that, look a little closer when you look at information, but be blessed, be beloved, and amen.